Welcome to my runcast. We got beautiful Mapatron Reservoir as our background today. I'm tired, guys. I was tired yesterday, and I'm just even more tired today. But I made some observations today in training that were on top of some observations that I made the other day, so I'm going to talk about those a little bit. So, this might have even just been yesterday. I don't even remember when any of this happened. So, I've talked a little bit before on my runcast about Tapia's nephew, right? So he's 12 years old. He came to stay with the family. So his uncle, his cousin, he came to stay with them for Songkran, which is like a break from school. You get like 2 months off from school. It's basically like summer vacation. And he started training Muay Thai with them because it's a Muay Thai gym, so that's what you do when you come and stay at their house. And I guess they kind of liked teaching him, and he decided he wanted to keep doing it, so he just changed schools. Like when school started again, he moved to Pattaya. He lives with his uncle, aunt, and cousins now, and trains Muay Thai. And it's this thing where like he just comes as like a normal 12-year-old kid, like just very, very normal 12-year-old kid. And within like 2 months of training with them, he like has a six-pack, and he's like fought 4 times, and he didn't win them all. I think he lost 2 and won 2, but he totally like got dropped and counted in round 1, and then came back and made his opponent quit in round 3, who was like, I think his opponent was like 17 or 18 years old. He's 12. It's amazing. So like, he's got heart, so they're willing to train him. And I'm watching how they treat him. This is what I've talked about previously in my runcast, is that they're just so brutal with this kid. And it's because he's related to them. Like, they're not really that harsh with kids. They tease them a lot at that age, but they're not quite as harsh with them unless they're related to them. But they're really, really rough with Gon. Like, they're very intense with him and brutal. And I was watching his cousin hold for him, and you know, they make him like use a lot of power just to tire him out, and his mouth is open all the time. He's kind of a goofy kid. He's like, as he's like kicking. And he's got decent power for like his experience and his size. But what's really impressive is that they have him like using all this power, and then they will just bash him with the pads in order to keep his guard up, which is good. This is how you like get someone to believe in their guard and trust their guard and keep their guard up. But they'll hit him so hard with it, and then he has to hit out of it. And what I was telling Kevin is that what's so brilliant about this being like the way that he's trained, and what's so different from how Westerners come at this, is that he's learning that the time you breathe, the way you get to breathe, is by hitting. He's like, you know, doing his strikes and stuff, but when they're coming at him and hitting him with the pads, he gets a breath when he hits back, when he's like, get the fuck off of me. This is totally what Ramba teaches his kids, who I clinch with, is that in order to get breath while you're clinching, you knee. Like, you have to hit someone with knees in order to be able to catch your breath. Otherwise, you're just constantly swimming and moving. And I can see how this works. This is not how I was taught. But Dieselnoy, I remember one time when he was teaching me, he was talking about how he gets to breathe when he's in the plum. Like, when he gets into the clinch with someone, he's like, now I can breathe, now I can relax. And that's a Muay Cow thing, is that you can like relax in the clinch. This is totally something that when I'm clinching with people who are much bigger than me, and even these boys who are bigger than me and better than me in quite a few ways, although not always, I can outlast all of them because I can relax, even when I'm getting my ass kicked. I can relax in the clinch in a way that they can't. So he's learning to relax, to breathe by striking, which is so amazing and so different from what I see among Westerners who come. I don't know how Westerners are taught. I'm not really taught in the West. I trained with Master K for 2 years, and Master K is not typical of how things are trained either. But like, I can see how people are trained, how people fight, is that there's like striking and then breathing. Like, you strike and then you have to back out or, you know, defend or whatever the thing is in order to catch your breath. And I'm not saying that every fighter strikes in order to breathe, but this is how they're training Gon, and I can see it. I can see what an advantage it is. It's kind of amazing. And then today I was watching, so the cousin, Poop, is Tapia's son. I was watching him clinching. So he's incredibly femur. Like, there is no part of him that's not femur. He's amazingly strong for a femur fighter, but he's just very, very firmer. So anytime people are clinching with him, most of the time there's no clinching going on. Like, most of the time he's juggling people and hitting their legs and dancing around, and it's basically like trying to find your window where you can go in and grab him. And sometimes when he's clinching against Dan, who's bigger than him, Dan will just rip his head down. Like, Dan finally gets in, finally grabs him and can rip his head down. And there was, I think it was yesterday, Tapia was yelling at Dan. He's like, Pook is tired, get in there. And Pook was doing this thing where he's like dancing around, and so Dan didn't believe that Pook was tired because he doesn't look tired. And I'm like, that's what tired looks like when you're Femeu. It's that total like gazelle thing where it's being chased like a lion, and it does a little like wiggle move that's like, I can do this for hours, and so the lion actually gives up because they're like, I can't chase this thing. That's a Femeu thing, is like when they're tired, they actually amp up their kind of like dancing around trickiness thing. Part of like Saenchai's style now, being ultra tricky, is that he's fighting people who don't present that much of a threat to him, but it's also that he's older and he's tired. His gas tank is nowhere near what it was when he was an actual stadium fighter. So he does all this tricky stuff as a show, but he also does it because he's tired. This is very much a Femeu thing, is when they get like super tricky, they're tired. And so this is a thing of like the illusion of Femeu fighters. It's like you have to not buy into it. I remember asking Namsak Noi, how did you beat Saenchai? And he was like, it was easy, I just didn't believe any of the shit he was doing to me. Like, he'd fake his little feet or whatever, and I just didn't believe it, and I'd step in. And so today when I'm watching Pook with Dan, he's like doing all this like Femeu stuff, and he's just freezing Dan all the time. Like, Dan can't see his opening, he doesn't know when to go because he knows he's gonna get kicked, his legs are being messed with, and again, sometimes he just jumps through the space and grabs his head and rips him down, and it actually works really well. But so I was explaining, this is where you guys get the like Sylvie and Kevin special of how our brains work. Basically, it's like how an atom can move as both a particle and a wave, right? So we never see it move as a wave. We just know it can move as a wave because these experiments with the slit in the paper, and when you open it back up to observe it, it has moved in such a way that it was a wave. But when we look at atoms, they're always moving like a particle. So this is the thing with Femeu fighters who are like moving around and flitting around. It's like doing this whole wave thing. And so it seems like you can't catch them. It seems like you can never find this moment. But the same thing they're doing to you, you need to do to them, which is that you make them act like a particle. You put them in a spot. You like open the box, you look at it, you observe it, and by seeing it, you actually pin it to a spot. Someone like Karahat, and I'm going to tell you the secret of Karahat, because the secret actually doesn't help you that much. You can know exactly what he's doing and you're still screwed. He basically has this like invisibility cloak because he fakes his timing. He doesn't fake his weapon so much, he fakes his timing more than anything. So you don't know when he's going to come, so it's very, very hard. You throw your block up and then you're too early and he capitalizes on it. He's basically always throwing a sheet over the ghost so that he can see it, which is like, he pins you to a spot. So he'll do a fake, which causes you to go into a defensive position, or he'll throw something that forces you to move into a rope position. So he basically limits what you are able to do at any given moment, which is the same thing that Takrolek does with leg kicks, is that he's like, I'm gonna kick you simultaneously to when you're trying to kick me, because I know you're in that spot. If you let someone just kind of like stand still and throw a kick, you're gonna get blocked. Like, if you try to like let someone be really like in a regular position and then you throw the kick, they're gonna block it and you're gonna get hurt. So his thing is you wait until you know that they're on one leg while they're kicking you, while they're trying to do something to you, then you leg kick. That's what Karahat's doing. He knows what position you're in, and then he knows that you have very few options, and he takes advantage of that. This is what Pook is doing as a Femeu fighter. He's basically stalling Dan all the time by, you know, faking like, oh, what am I gonna do? I'm annoying you, I'm keeping your legs. And so you get this like, when am I gonna come in thing. The secret is, instead of like, you get hit and then you pause, and then you're like, what do I do to counter this? You counter it simultaneous. And this is difficult because you have to kind of like have the experience. You have to spar a lot, you have to clinch a lot, you have to know how to throw something simultaneously. But it's the same thing. And the example I showed him was like, if someone comes and they're hooking me and I'm gonna block the hook like this, I have to be hooking at the same time or elbowing at the same time, not immediately after. Because if I get hit and I stop for a second and then I'm gonna come out and do my move, it's too late. I'm already getting hit with something else. So you have to make it simultaneous. And this is how you interrupt a femur fighter, and you pin them to your spot. Because the moment they've thrown something, they've fired their gun, they have to come back to another position, and that's when you're going to take advantage of that position that they're in. This is incredibly, incredibly hard to do because it's all about timing, but you just practice it and you learn how to do it. And I thought it was so interesting, this comparison between how they're training Gan in this like striking is how I get my relief, and then the answer to a femur fighter is actually also not trying to find your opening, but knowing that every time someone is throwing a strike, they have a vulnerability, and taking advantage of that, of like, that's your opening, is a very helpful thing to know and to work on and to hone, I guess is the way to say that. Then, okay, so I look at all that, I think about all that, and then I go over to Rambaz, and I'm clinching with his boys. And Takruton is one of his bigger fighters. He fights on like RWS. He's so skilled, like he knows so many things. He's really incredible. And he was showing some of the younger boys, so like my clinch partners, he was teaching them clinch moves, like kind of throws and trips, and none of it was stuff that I've never seen before. It's stuff that Ramba has taught before, but it's not stuff I do. Like, knowing stuff and doing stuff are very different things. But I was man in the middle, and so I'm struggling with M16, who's so big, and then Takruton is like messing with Naksu, and the size disparity between the two of those and the like older brother thing where you just get your ass kicked kind of thing was intense. So suddenly, after like 10 minutes uninterrupted with M16, even though I'm man in the middle, now they're gonna switch. So Takruton lets Naksu come back to me, and he's all riled up because he's just gotten his ass kicked by this huge fighter, and he comes at me so hard, and I was like, Yamoho, like, don't be so Gyron, like, don't come at me trying to punish me because you're upset with what just happened to you with Takruton, and he came at me really hard, and I actually did get like kneed a lot and my head pulled down a lot, but then he tired himself out within like a minute of coming after me like this, and then I was able to kind of like interrupt his legs and grab him and start ripping his head down, and then really, really tire him out. And it was this thing where it's like you getting Gyron and losing control of yourself and your composure, you lose control of your like gas gauge. So it's a little bit like in the book The Shining, how the boiler down below, it creeps, like the pressure creeps up. When you get Gyron, or when you don't control yourself, when you don't have the ning that they're always really impressing on fighters, and one of the reasons they're so hard at Tapia's gym on Gan is like you're building calluses, but you're also putting him under such intense pressure that he has to find ways to relax under it, because there's no way you can make it through 5 rounds under that much pressure. This is why people gas out after 1 round, even though in training they can go through 5 rounds on the pads and stuff like this. It's the pressure. Pressure changes everything. So it's the same thing of like Naksu trying to come after me to like punish me because I'm smaller. It's that shit rolls downhill kind of thing where like he just got beat up, and so now he's gonna come after me, but he's not controlling his valve, and so it crept, like his pressure crept, and it just became too much, so that then me just putting a little bit more pressure on him in the moment that I could was able to kind of like pull everything down. And it's that same thing I was talking about where I'm not as big or necessarily as good as those guys, but I can maintain calm under that pressure, and so I'm able to kind of last longer, and so I can tire people out. It's that same thing. It's the same thing with Diesel Noi relaxing in the clinch. Anyway, I don't know that all of those things are connected, but they're connected in my brain. I find it interesting. And I was watching this big Western guy, bigger than everybody. He was clinching as well. And when he was going with Takruton, who's also, you know, he's smaller than this guy, but he's bigger than everyone else. He's a big guy. Like, he's not a small Thai. He's very, like, stocky and heavy and very, very strong. When I was watching the two of them, I could see so much in, like, a perfect diagram almost, how much Duuglas-Ittu is able to win every exchange and overpower and like choose his moment to throw him or whatever. Even if he's like losing in a strength battle or something, he can always flip it and bring it to the front. And it's totally hip position. Like, I filmed it a little bit, and I don't know if I'm gonna post it because I don't want to like film people without them consenting and using them as like an example of what not to do or something. And the guy's not bad in any way. Like, he was actually doing quite well at long stretches and able to like hold himself, but then he would just get thrown at some point. And it's all this hip position. It's like, if you watch Duuglas-Ittu's body, his hips are always in this very, very neutral position. They're slightly pushed forward when he's trying to like wrangle, and then he can kind of like swing them back in order to strike or something like that. But they're never, you are never bent at the waist the way that non-ties when we come to clinch and we're trying to like wrench people and pull people, and we want to make this space between our hips because it's very weird to throw your crotch at somebody. It's just literally like inches in the hip position makes so much of a difference in dominating an exchange or getting thrown in an exchange. And it's all these tiny, tiny things, and you just get there from this endlessness of clinching. Like, there's no rounds in clinching. I see a lot of people when they first come to gyms and they're like, they're not used to clinching, because in the West, honestly, people just don't train clinch, and when they do, it's very minimal, just because people don't know it. But people think there's rounds, because like when you spar, usually there's rounds and there's a break in between. A lot of gyms, they don't let you have breaks in between. They're like, just go for 30 minutes or something. But with clinching, there's never breaks. Like, even if you get thrown to the ground and that would be a break of like, now you have to stand back up. If you're man in the middle, someone else is literally grabbing your neck and pulling you up off the floor. It's so brutal. But this is how you like solve things, and kind of, I always use the example of like a river stone, of a river smoothing over a stone, is that the kind of relentlessness, the non-stopness of that kind of training, of that kind of clinching, you have to find an equilibrium of balance. And Kevin always said to me when I was first starting clinching, and I was so afraid of being thrown because these boys at Petra Run would just throw me all the time, and he's like, get thrown, like just fucking be thrown, and then eventually your body will find ways to rebalance itself, and suddenly you just won't be thrown anymore. And he was correct in that. He was very correct in that, and it is because it just never stops. And again, the same thing that I was saying with Gon at the beginning, that they're so rough with him at Tapia's gym. By being so intense with him, his body will find a way. And this is honestly how Poop, the son, became so Femeu. It's the same thing with Karahat becoming so Femeu. It's laziness. Laziness is what makes you really, really Femeu, because you find ways to cheat, to not use energy. Femeu is very like, I'm not using any energy, so the secret code to it is to force them to use energy, tire them out, hurt them. If you hurt a Femeu fighter, you can kind of pin them in a spot in a really significant way. Whereas like a Muay Thai fighter, we hurt all the time. Like, we get hit all the time. You have to take some strikes in order to get to the range that you want to be in, so that's like kind of part of it. And what we do is, we're not necessarily like the most agile or whatever, but the relentlessness is what our kind of secret code is. So being tired is to our advantage, like being relentless is to our advantage, and we learn how to like keep pushing even when you're tired, to keep coming forward even when you're tired. Whereas the opposite of that is like the cheat codes of figuring out how to stay to like edge on being tired and not get tired. This is totally like the personality type that makes you fall into what kind of style you're going to be. Part of it is just what weapons you kind of are naturally inclined to. Part of it is what your strengths are. But a lot of it is just kind of your personality. And I always laugh about this, and I always talk about this, that Karahat, when he was fighting up in the provinces, which was not for very long, he started when he was like 16 and he was already down in Bangkok by the time he was like 18. So he didn't fight in the provinces that much, maybe like 22 fights or something like that. But he was Muay Thai when he first started. And then when he came down to Bangkok, he could not handle the training. He was like, it was too exhausting. I didn't want to train like that. So he cheated his way into becoming like the greatest female fighter of all time, which is insane. But it's a personality thing. And then someone like Diesel Noi, it is totally in the way he talks, he's always 100%. Like, he's either 1,000 miles per hour or on his phone. Like, those are his two settings. And that's totally just his, like, personality type. Like, he is all about this relentless, never showing fatigue, even though he must have been tired all the time. You just never, ever, ever show any kind of physical depreciation in any way. I love it. I think it's so interesting. I love that there are so many different versions and like so many interesting ways to express yourself in your style. And like, Muay Cow don't look the same as each other. Like, there's individuality within a style. It's very not like, this is what Muay Mat looks like and this is what Muay Cow looks like. Like, they're using their fists and they come forward. They're using their knees and they come forward. That's the similarity, but the way that people actually put it all together is so unique. It's really brilliant. Like, Kevin and I were watching Olay, and we were like, wow, he's kind of Karahat-esque. You know, like, they have similarities in the way that they have this, like, elasticity in their femurness. But it's not the same. Like, they're not the same style. You're like, wow, I can't believe there's someone who's kind of similar to Karahat because he's so amazing. And then you could say that, like, Samart and Jarn Tong are kind of similar because they're femur with good hands. But, like, that's such a broad way to define similarity. It's like saying two actresses are blonde and so they're very similar to each other. Like, there are people who think that way, but you know, in a reality of what makes a person, I guess if you're casting it, you're like, give us all the blondes that are white and pretty and kind of fit in this rom-com type kind of thing. But it's very rare that you actually like mix up actors with each other, because even if they're typecast as the same type, they're not really exchangeable for each other. And I think the golden age of Hollywood is actually done. I think that's pretty gone. Celebrity's been kind of, what's the word? When like something that doesn't go in something gets in it. It's like a chemistry term. Contaminated. I think celebrity has been kind of contaminated with influencers, with like social media, people who don't really do anything or kind of do anything as a performance. That's not really what their thing is. Get a degree of celebrity. And then there are people who totally are artists and totally are creating something, and they get a degree of celebrity in that like niche thing that they're doing. And that's celebrity now. Whereas before you actually had to like, you know, make a movie that people liked and then go on a circuit and do all the interviews, and people had to like you as a person in addition to liking the movie that you made, and then maybe you'd make a movie that flopped and blah blah blah. Like, it was much more complicated. And I think that kind of like golden age of celebrity of actors and actresses where like all the blondes are different from each other is a little bit gone now. There's more of a like trying to fit the type, like trying to slide in. This is popular, so we'll make 3 more of it. It's like one of the reasons that remakes are what every movie is now, or like franchises are what every movie is now. The same thing happens with Muay Thai, where there was a lot of individuality before, and now there's less so. And it might just be the same thing as like the, you know, social media flooding of this type. This was kind of popular, so we do another one kind of thing. Is like, oh, this fighter is doing really well. Here's one that's a little bit like him. We'll just kind of push him also. There were kind of like maybe 7 or 8 years ago, there were these like gimmick shows that Lumpini and Rajadamnern were doing. They would like bring in social media people, Naklang, which are kind of like gangsters, the sons of very rich gangsters who are, you know, yapping at each other on social media. And so they'd go like settle it in the ring and stuff, and people hated it. Like, it was put on as a highlight show or a highlight fight on a regular show, and people complained about it like crazy. They were like, this is not something that you can have at Lumpini and Rajadamnern. We do show fights all the time out in the provinces. It's like the blind boxers, there's the like wife and mistress battling it out. Like, there's some bizarre stuff. It is part of Muay Thai in a very, very real way, in like lower level local shows kind of thing, where it's like local to that community. They would understand who these people are or like what's going on there. But you wouldn't do it in the national stadia because these are the like standard stadia. When we were interviewing Tucker Leck about the state of Muay Thai and entertainment Muay Thai, he was so funny. He was like, with them bringing entertainment Muay Thai into the national stadia, he's like, where is the standard now? And he actually like turned and faced me. He like changed the position. We're standing like side by side for the interview. And when he says this, he's like, where's the standard stadia? And then he like moved and like faced me and he's like, Sylvie, where is the standard stadia? And I'm like, there isn't one anymore. And it's just this kind of like, I guess if like you cross that line between the online celebrity and like real Hollywood, if people like that or not, like if you put Kim Kardashian in an actual role, not like a walk on, oh look, we put her in our movie, but like an actual leading role, like how would people feel about that? Would that movie tank? Would it make any money at all? Like that kind of thing. I think that's kind of a thing that's happening with Muay Thai in blurring the lines between traditional Muay Thai and like business Muay Thai and real Muay Thai, and then entertainment Muay Thai, and kind of you know, doing what you do in order to sell not necessarily the show, but like a clipped up highlight version of the show. Like you're selling highlight reels instead of the actual entire event. I don't know. The world is different. I was listening to a podcast and they made this really interesting point, because I'm someone who sits on the cusp of before the internet and then post internet. The internet was very, very new when I was young. I don't remember there not being internet, but it was that thing where like there were kids in my school who would talk about going home and talking to each other on AOL, and I didn't even know what that was. And like we had modem at home, and when my dad was on the computer, none of us could use the phone, and we were all becoming like social at that time, so we wanted to use the phone. And it was this big thing. And so I have like a pre-smartphone, pre-social media idea of the world, where like I still remember what anonymity felt like. I remember what privacy was. I remembered not being able to be reached everywhere you were, not having like I have to answer these dings in my pocket all the time. And there's adult generation of people now who never lived without that. Like people who are 25 years old, never ever in their consciousness lived without phones or without social media or without YouTube or any of these things. Like watching TV is just not something that people of this generation even do anymore. And so there's this like stress between people older than me who remember a time before the internet much more strongly than I do, and then my generation where it's like, yeah, I kind of have memories of this, but like social media has been in a pretty big part of most of my adult life. And then kids who are born to it, and it's this thing where like the generation that didn't have this at a formative time is really resistant to this being the new norm, where it's like kids' brains are rotting, all the screen time and blah blah blah, and there are studies on this kind of thing, but people who were born to it, it's totally like that Bane and Batman thing where it's like, the darkness betrays you, but we were born to it. Like if you were born to the world where social media was what it is now, you're like, what is the fucking problem? Like this is how the world works, Fogey. Like why would you complain about this? And I'm kind of in this weird position where like I don't remember Muay Thai from the golden age because I didn't know what Muay Thai was when it was still happening, and I was so young when it was actually happening, so it isn't on my radar. So I'm looking at it retrospectively. So it'd be like someone who's like, you know, 25-year-olds now being like, we're gonna get rid of our smartphones and use beepers because it's like a degree of freedom of like the world that we've never actually experienced. But then the world changes so fast that even people who are like 25, 30 years old now have seen such crazy changes and advancement in technology and the overtaking of social media, not using cash anymore, like all of these different things. It's like the world changes really fast. This is me living in Thailand for the past 12 years. Muay Thai has changed so fast, like so crazy rapid, that even the like sour, weird version that I came to when I first came here is like gone, and I'm like nostalgic for it, or like kind of gripping at it, like sand going through my fingers, being like, this is changing so fast, this is really scary. But it's a little bit of the like fogey generation of like things change and it's really scary, as opposed to kids that are coming up now in Muay Thai and they're like, Muay Thai is 3 rounds of swimming at each other and bashing at each other and jumping up on the ropes and acting like you just gave the best performance of your life, when it was like very low skill kind of thing, because that's just what you do. They just like imitate what they see on TV, and that's becoming more and more the thing now to see on TV, is this like jumping up on the ropes to get the like fan cheering kind of thing when you haven't fucking done anything. It's crazy. Yeah. So that's my array of subjects today. I'm walking a little bit more than normal. Last year I broke the sesamoid bones in my right foot, and I've been wearing orthotics for the past year. Like for the first 3 months once it got diagnosed, I fought with it and filmed a bunch of sessions with it broken, because I didn't know it was broken. I knew it hurt and I knew it sucked, but I didn't know it was broken. So I finally got the x-ray and got it diagnosed, and went and saw this amazing podiatrist who gave me insoles, so like custom orthotics. I had to wear them 24/7. Like I could not get up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night without wearing them, which meant I had to like have the shoes, the house shoes, right next to the bed to slip on if I had to like go to the bathroom. I could never, ever, ever not be wearing them. So I was training in shoes. It was really rough, but it actually did help them heal. But there are these tiny, tiny little cartilage-ish bones under your foot, and when they break, it means that they've separated. Like they don't snap, they just separate from each other, and they never go back together. So it gets better, like they stop like pinching this nerve that they were pinching, and this like tendon was kind of sliding between them that should have actually been flossed between them. So it solved it in like, this is much better way. And I've had these orthotics for a year, so I don't wear them in the house anymore. I train barefoot. I walk around barefoot in the house, all this stuff, but anytime I'm running, I have to wear these orthotics. And today, this spot on my foot, the same spot, like the same bones, are just really painful. Like it's not as sharp as it was, and it's not like I can't put weight on it like it was when they were broken, but it's making me really nervous that they hurt this much again a year later. So I either have to like start wearing the orthotics 24/7 again to try to like let those bones rest, or I'll go and make an appointment with this podiatrist again and see if I maybe need like to redesign the orthotic a little bit, or maybe they've been worn down in a little bit because I've been wearing them for so long. So it's a little bit of a long run cast today, partially because I'm babbling, but partially because I have to walk more, because running just really kills. So thank you for listening to the long one, and talk to you guys later.